striking some people out. And I've got to learn how to do that over the course of my career as a collegiate athlete, but more importantly, as a pro. And I did take some lumps in trying to figure out what it meant to me to be a successful pitch caller. So that's what our class is going over today, and I hope you all love it. Let's get started. All right, so introduction to pitch calling. First things first, why is it so important? Talked a little bit about why pitch calling is important. And when you think about it, you know, it's the game within the game, right? And when you're setting up hitters and when you're getting balls and strikes, right? Count control is everything, right? Hitters like to hit swing in certain counts because it makes them more comfortable. Pitchers like to pitch in certain counts because it makes them more comfortable. And then you have an umpire that's obviously somewhat controlling all of the counts via a strike zone. So it's so important to understand why pitch calling can help you be successful. And the more you understand it as either a pitcher or a catcher, or even dare I say a hitter, the more likely you are to be successful, right? If you can understand some of those basic strategies and information, that execution piece of throwing that pitch or catching that ball or understanding pitch to pitch sequencing is going to be so much easier for you as a pitcher or a catcher. As a hitter, obviously, if you understand it, then I'm not going to tell you you should, but if you're a hitter, if you understand pitch calling and some of those strategies, then you might be able to think one or two pitches ahead and be on the same page of whoever's calling pitches. And who wouldn't want to know what pitch is coming? Okay, so number two, why do you need a strategy? Okay, so I think when we're young and we're playing club ball and all of that, sometimes we're just throwing numbers down there. You know, we're throwing anything which way and just trying to find something that works. But if we don't have a strategy for something as in-depth as pitch calling, because there's a lot of factors to it, then we end up just we're throwing things at a wall, just throwing things out there, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. This affects not only the pitcher's rhythm and the catcher's rhythm of the game, but it can also really affect the strike zone, right? Because an umpire obviously wants to get into a rhythm and a pace, and the pitcher and catcher are setting the rhythm, right? So if all of a sudden you don't have a strategy and you're throwing any pitch, anytime, anywhere, and just without any rhyme or reason, all of a sudden it doesn't make sense. Our game is fast, folks. Our game is fast, and let's not deny that. And honestly, I would almost double down saying that the game is getting faster, right? Like our game is faster than it's ever been right now. And so anticipating is really important, not only for the umpires and the hitters, but also for the catchers and the pitchers, and anticipating where these pitches might go or what pitch might be called next. Okay, to create that sense of calm, confidence, and confirmation for them when they're on the mound. Okay, and then lastly, obviously kind of went over it a little bit, why you need to understand the game inside the game. The more you know, right? The more you know, the higher level that you'll be able to play at. Who doesn't want to play at a higher level and be more successful on the softball field? No one. No one. So understanding the game inside the game of just setting up people, sequencing, timing, tunneling, and what that means for getting outs, because the team that gets 21 outs the fastest is going to win. Okay, so in that aspect, you never want to give away pitches or you want to give away outs. The team that gets to 21 outs the fastest is going to win the game. So if you can find a way or an edge to understand the game inside the game, to get out, to get an out, why not do it? All right, so in pitch calling, obviously there's many factors. So let's start. Number one, we're going to just go through some basic information because there are different factors that are important. Number one, pitcher-catcher communication. Okay, this is a huge one because a pitcher and a catcher, obviously they're working together in the bullpen, But what a pitching coach might not often see from the side is spacing. Okay, spacing refers to how far a ball might move, or in the river, how far it might move off the line, and how far maybe a hitter is adjusting from pitch to pitch. Sometimes those things are hard to see in an at bat. And a pitcher and a catcher being able to communicate in their bullpens through their sequencing on things that work well together and things that a catcher might see that a pitcher cannot see, or that a pitcher might see that a catcher might not. Some of those things a catcher sees as probably spacing, footwork, girls getting lower in their legs, better torque for their upper body, or maybe like their vision. Some things that pitchers see that often catchers don't see is if hitters often tend to look at a certain spot or location, they go back to that with their eyes. The pitchers will often pick that up. Another thing that pitchers can often pick up is if a hitter starts to adjust their hands in a certain way, lower, higher, back, in those sort of ways. Okay. So pitcher-catcher communication is really important, and being able to make those adjustments when the pitch is called by the things that they've done in the bullpen. So being able to mesh those two things together with their sequencing and practices together really makes a huge difference for all of them. Yes. Just making sure there wasn't one other thing that I needed to say there. Definitely. And then the other thing I would say too is also a pitcher and a catcher. When you think about the scope of a game, right, especially in pitch calling, is a pitcher might throw, if she's throwing 7 innings, a full game, she might throw 100 pitches, maybe around 100 usually is what a pitcher is going to throw, around 100, more or less, give or take. Okay. But in different situations, some pitches have more intense value on them. Okay. Right. And that doesn't necessarily, when we as viewers of the game, we often think of it like, oh, there's a runner on second, there's a runner on third. Okay. This is an intense moment. But different pitches hold different intensity levels based on when they're called in a game. So a first pitch, a 3-2 pitch, those are obvious ones, right? But it can also be pitches after foul balls. It can be the third foul ball they do. It can be a 2-1, depending on a pitch that's called after another pitch, whether it's that pitcher's strength or weakness. Okay. So a catcher is able to feel that intensity of the moment, or more importantly, the intensity of a single pitch and the whole scope of a game, where factors of base runners or prior hits or not hits matter. All right. So the next thing that I want to talk about, and this is a huge one that I like to preach about, is the first pitch. Okay. We're seeing it a lot these days, but the first pitch, and there's different ones. So first, let's talk about first pitch of the game. And now pitchers, I'm going to challenge you a little bit more, as we just got to be better in the first inning. Okay. Especially when we're the home team. Okay. So first pitch of the game. Why is this so important? I think this shows a couple different things. One, it establishes a pitch that is probably one of your better pitches, right? Most of the time, first pitch of the game, you're not going to throw a changeup. You're going to throw your go-to pitch, okay? So first pitch of the game, it also helps establish a zone for the umpire, okay? Where is somewhere you want to hit consistently in that zone? Is it low and in? Is it low and out? Where is that first pitch, okay? And then it also kind of sets the tone for the entire team on defense in that rhythm. Okay, so first pitch of the game, so important for a pitcher because it helps set her up for her own internal rhythm and timing, her team's rhythm and timing, and then just obviously tone of the game, right? Tone of the game is so big. So next would be first pitch of an at bat. Okay, when you think about an at bat, and I like this quote here, I'm going to read it to you now. First pitch strikes are 92.7% of first pitch strikes lead to an out. You guys, 92.7%. Like, I feel like it got higher. It's gotten higher. First pitch strikes. So when we talk about first pitch strikes, I want you guys to have a broad mind, okay? Don't be narrow and think, hey, I got to throw the outside corner every time, or I got to throw the screwball because that's my best pitch. First pitch strikes can be a multiple of different things, okay? They can be a swing through, they can be a called looking, and they can be foul balls, okay? It's hard for a hitter to be, especially the first time through the lineup, okay? It's hard for a hitter first time through the lineup to go out there and be on time, right? And be ready to go for that first pitch. Okay, so that's something, and to be able to then make it really solid contact on it. Does it happen? Yes. But does it happen early in the game often? Not really. Not really. Most of the time you'll see those first pitch big hits late in the game, okay? So when coaches are tracking tendencies of the pitchers. So first pitch strikes, 92.7% of first pitch strikes lead to an out. So as a pitcher and a catcher, you want to think about, how can I target this hitter to get a first pitch strike, and which way do I want to do it? Okay. I also want to clarify, as you go through your different times through the lineup, first time, second time, or third time through, you want to start to vary those in the pitches that you're throwing in your first pitch. Okay. Not every pitch has to be a first pitch strike, but you do want to weigh heavy on that, just because of this stat, that 92% of first pitch strikes lead to an out. The first team to 21 outs is going to win the game. Okay, so first pitch of the game, go out there with fire in your heart, ladies. Like, set the tone, feed off that excitement and that adrenaline and that energy, right? First pitch of an at bat, especially first time through, aggressive mindset, and then be strategic on how you're calling for your first pitch, especially after you're going through the lineup multiple times. All right, so this is the next one that we need to cover, is your pitcher's best pitch, okay? And we want to break this down a little bit. Okay, pitcher's best pitch. First, obviously, she has her go-to, right? And this is the pitch in my situation. My go-to was my rise ball. It's the pitch I threw all the time, anytime, any day, anywhere. It's your go-to, and it was my everyday go-to. Okay. But when you think about it, most pitchers, they're going to have their go-to pitch, but then sometimes you have to evaluate them as a coach or as a catcher. You need to evaluate their everyday best pitch. Okay. So that means that maybe on this given Saturday, maybe their changeup is actually their go-to pitch. Okay. Maybe that's the pitch they're dominating with today, and that's the best pitch that you're going to see consistently. Okay. So it's really important to evaluate your pitches based on the day, but also to overall understand, like, hey, at the end of the day, this pitcher or Monica Abbott is going to be a rise ball pitcher, a curveball pitcher, and a changeup pitcher. On any given day, one of those pitches might be that day's very best pitch, but no matter what, her go-to is always the rise ball. So evaluating that difference and understanding the difference between her regular go-to and then her today's best go-to, and then the one on the bottom here is your consistent best, okay? So this is where the coaching aspect comes into play, okay? And we need to know these sort of stats and data, because what pitch does my pitcher throw that's her go-to, but what pitch is she throwing on a consistent basis that's really good? What's the one that she's hitting 9 out of 10 on in her workouts when she's doing percentage pitching? And a lot of times that is actually different than what her go-to is. Or there might be a surprise in there, like, hey, actually her go-to pitch, her rise balls, 9 out of 10, but you know what? Her drop ball lately has been 9 out of 10 too. And there you have that secondary consistent best pitch where, hey, maybe I can sneak in this pitch against some of the top hitters, the 3-4s, the really good slappers, someone that's hot in the lineup with a consistent best pitch, because they're looking for her go-to. Okay. And that's going to help set up your hitters. All right. All right, so this one I like to talk about, and this kind of goes for our younger crowd here, but this is about timing. And this is, I wanted to bring this up because it's when do you develop and work on pitches in a game? Okay, these are for our athletes that just want to get work on a different style of pitch. Maybe you want to work on your spacing on your curveball, or your breaking points on your rise ball, or maybe hey, like I need to practice my changeup more. I went through plenty of times where I did this. So obviously the easiest answer here for timing on when to develop pitches when you're ahead, right? Like when you have the biggest lead, you know, you're in the 4th or 5th inning and your team's winning by quite a few runs. Go ahead and like, let's use that time to develop our other pitches and get them working so that they can pay dividends down the road when you're in championship play. Okay. All your pitches need game experience, especially if you're planning to rely on them in clutch moments. Okay. The second one, your second obvious, when you're losing by a lot. Okay. Like let's say the game's out of reach and you're not able to work on things. Maybe that's a good time to start working on some timing stuff. Okay. The next and third one is probably for my little bit more advanced kids that a little bit of closer game. Maybe it's 3-0 or 2-0. Maybe it's 3-1, something like that, where then you can start to sneak in some working pitches on a 0-0 count. Okay. Second time through the lineup, bottom of the lineup, second time through the lineup, towards the end of the lineup, you can start to work on some developing pitches. Let's say it's a 0-0 count is a good option. You can also do it on like, let's say like a 1-2 count or even a 2-2 count, because then you can put a little bit of pressure on that pitch, especially if it's one that you foresee using down the road in clutch situations on a 2-2 count, because that's like a pressure situation. Pitchers don't want to go to 3-2, right? So in 2-2, it raises that focus level and that intensity level for the pitcher. So just some options on that. But again, timing, if you are planning to use a pitch or planning to use something in championship play or in clutch moments down the road, because you will need it. You will need it at some point. Start to find ways to sneak it in there and start to get some practice on it later in mid to late games and in specific counts. All right, next, pressure pitches. Okay, so pressure pitches are pitches that are very intense. The intensity level is really high. They're in specific counts, and they can be for different reasons. Maybe the emotions of the game are really high at that moment. Okay, maybe it's a pressure pitch because I'm struggling with the umpire's zone and I keep getting behind. So I'm starting to show some frustration as a pitcher and catcher. Maybe it's a pressure pitch because the bases are loaded. Okay. Maybe it's a pressure pitch because this hitter has just owned me all day. And now it's like her third time up. And I just need to like get like, oh, she's really getting me. And so I need to like step my game up. The reason I want to talk about pressure pitches is because for my more elite people there, you want to start to track how many pressure pitches you're throwing in a game, because pressure pitches start to wear on an athlete more than a normal pitch would. Okay. Pressure pitches start to wear on an athlete more than a normal pitch would. And that's just because of the intensity of, honestly, in here and in here, right? Like that's where that pressure and intensity is coming from. It's coming from your heart and your feelings, and then upstairs in your mindset. So having those pressure pitches, they just wear on your body a little bit more. So you want to try to limit your pitcher, especially if she's throwing a lot of them. And that's a good sign where maybe you might want to make a change, or you want to give her rest for the next game. So a good rule of thumb off the top of my head, I would say if you're getting into like 10 pressure pitches or more, you're in trouble. We want to keep it under 10. I think 7 to 8 is a good one at the most. Okay. So pressure pitches, just remember that and tracking them per game, because if they start to get high, the spin rate and the speed of the pitch of that same pitch could start to decline as she gets later in the game. Okay, so next up is tunneling. Okay, I'm looking at this picture right now. I'm like, whew, did I miss the tunneling? Look at that face. She's like, eek, eek. Okay, so next one up is we're going to talk a little bit about tunneling. So tunneling is just a little bit of a how-to, and we'll go over this here in a minute on the board, but tunneling is obviously throwing multiple pitches in one location, and you can tunnel through two different ways depending on how good your pitcher is. Okay, tunneling is a great way to separate zones and also surprise hitters. And you can do it, you can tunnel through location, or you can tunnel through breaking points. Okay, so for example, you could tunnel location on an outside corner, a drop ball, a changeup, and then maybe a curveball. Or you could tunnel on breaking points, a rise ball, a drop ball, and then another rise ball. And that's all based on the skill level of your pitcher. Okay, remember, when we are tunneling, we want to tunnel within a circle, right? But we want to tunnel within a ball's width. Okay, a ball's width of a ball's width. Okay, so whatever your softball is, a ball's width around it. And if you're tunneling, obviously half of that ball might hit the corner, or hit the white part of the plate. We want to tunnel towards the outer half. So we never want to tunnel towards the white of the plate. So you're really working on half of a ball around. Okay, so tunneling is a great way to be able to set up hitters and then surprise them with different things depending on the skill level of your pitcher. All right, so this is the fun part, strategies. This is where we're going to talk, and I'm going to go over it first before I go ahead and switch my camera over. But so the first one is strategies is triangles. Okay, and that's the rule. Triangles, your rule of threes, and the rule of the change. Okay, let me see if I could stop screen share here. And then okay. All right, get this chair out of the way. And you guys, I brought this handy dandy whiteboard here. Okay. Okay. So let's go over my favorite part of the presentation. Hopefully you guys are all following me right now. I'm not talking too fast. Okay.
Mon, can you press stop screen share so we could see the full view? Can you see that at the bottom?
Yep. Yep. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, you're good. Yep. Perfect.
Sorry, I thought I pressed it. My bad, guys. Here I am again. Okay. Hopefully you guys can all see this. Okay. So if you remember the last slide, we talked about the rule of triangles, the rule of threes, and the rule of the change. Okay. So I drew up some mock zones here. First, let's go over the rule of the triangles. Okay. This is one rule that I actually really loved. Okay, the rule of the triangle states basically anytime you throw pitches, you want to kind of create a triangle. Okay, so if it's pitch 1, pitch 2, pitch 3, see you have a triangle there. Okay, same thing here. You could go pitch 1 outside, pitch 2, let's say we go outside again, and then let's say pitch 3, we go rise ball out. Again, you have a triangle. Okay, you could also do the same thing inside, in here, and then you could go out, and then you can go back in with the drop ball, and then you have a triangle. That's a horrible drawing, but there's your triangle. Okay, and then your last one, of course, this one is for my advanced kids. And this is where tunneling comes into effect, and it's super important, as you can tunnel here with, like, let's say whatever you have here, a fastball, a curveball, a drop ball, and then maybe a low rise or a changeup or another curveball. And then again, you have your triangle. So this states the rule of triangles. Okay. The rule of triangles, just whenever you're trying to throw against someone, you want to create space, right? So space between two pitches. And that's how the rule of triangles works. Okay. So the next one, take this one here. So the rule of triangles is one that I feel like is really, really effective. It's one that I actually really love and use quite a bit. And it's fun because you can get really, really creative with it. And that's like one of the best parts about it, because you can do different sizes of triangles and use different pitches in different ways that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. Okay. So the next thing is the rule of threes. Okay. So the rule of threes states that you're never going to throw more than 3 in one location. Okay. Never throw more than 3 in one location. Okay. And the reason we don't want to do this is because if we throw 3, let's say we're throwing 3 in this location and we go to throw the fourth, that fourth one is going to get hit, and it's going to get hit hard. Okay. It's going to get hit. It's going to get hit hard. Okay. Never more than 3 in one location. And that doesn't matter for any location that you're throwing, whether it's low out, it's low in, never more than 3 in one location. Okay. Got it? All right, so now we're going to go to the rule of the change. The rule of the change, most of you guys are going to hear this, or probably have heard this before. The change is the equalizer, right? Like it resets the hitter. When some people throw that word around, and sometimes I'm not sure they really know what they're talking about, you know, or what they mean. But when we talk about the changeup being the equalizer, the reason it's an equalizer is because it resets the hitter's timing. Okay. It basically gives you a blank slate to start over again. Okay. It clears everything. Okay. Does that make sense? So, for example, the rule of the change. Okay. Let's say you're doing let's say you're over here and you're in the rule of the triangle. Okay. And you're following the rule of the triangle first. And you're like, hey, you know what? We're going to go drop out. Then I'm going to go rise in. And then, you know what? I think I'll just go change up inside. Okay. So, and then you have your triangle here. Okay. But let's say, for example, now your count's 1 and 2, and this changeup was a ball. Okay. So when we think about the changeup being a ball and you have your triangle reset, remember it's an equalizer, right? So the great thing about the changeup is because it's an equalizer, now you have a choice. You have a choice. Do you want to use that changeup to reset a new triangle? Or do you want to use your changeup to start completely over? Okay. So you have 2 choices. You could go choice 1 and letting your changeup be pitch 1 in your new triangle. So you could go pitch 2 back to the rise, and then you could go back to the drop, and then you have another triangle here. Or your other option would be to use your changeup because it's the equalizer. You could just reset the entire thing, and you could go over back to your drop out, maybe a rise, and then, I don't know, maybe another rise. Okay, and then you have your triangle here. So when we are talking about the rule of the triangles, your changeup can either, if it's the last pitch you're throwing in your triangle, it can either start the next triangle or you can start an entire new triangle. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. When the rule of the change applies to the rule of triangles, your changeup, because it's the equalizer and it resets, it basically clears the space. You can either use the changeup and it's your choice. you can use the changeup as pitch 1 in your new triangle, or you can use it as just say, no, I don't want to use it. I'm going to go completely somewhere else and reset a whole new triangle. Okay. That's the rule of the changeup applied to the rule of the triangles. Okay. And then next, the rule of changeup applied to the rule of threes. Here. So as we know, we never want to throw more than 3 in one location, right? It's the only time this doesn't apply. This doesn't apply, and you better have a good changeup, ladies. Okay, this isn't like the Monica Abbott College changeup that was only like 5 miles an hour slower. Okay, this is like an actual speed difference of a changeup. Okay, so let's say you go drop. Let's say you go, I don't know, curveball. And then let's say you go drop again. Okay. The only time that you can do the rule of the change again, if you throw more than 3 in one location, is if that's a changeup here. Okay. Only time. If you break this rule, you will feel the damage, but that's up to you. It's your choice. Okay, that's the only time. All right, got it? Only at the end. Now, mind you, don't fall because there's an exception to the rule. That is the exception. Let's say you throw pitch 1, or low rise in, pitch 2 is your changeup, and then pitch 3 is your drop ball. That is not an exception to the rule, okay? Because it's in the middle of your threes, all right? So you basically slow the hitter down, then you put her back on time, okay? Does that make sense? So you can break the rule of threes if your last pitch is the changeup, if pitch number 4 is the changeup. If pitch number 1, pitch number 2 is the changeup, it doesn't break the rule. Still no more than 3 in one location. Okay, 3 total. All right, so that is the rule of triangles, the rule of threes, and the rule of the change. Okay, so the other thing that I have on the board before we open up for questions and all that is just some other factors that often play into place. Is obviously your pitchers. Let's talk head to head, and this is just talking about your pitcher's best thing. Just other factors that play into play in the game is your pitcher's best pitch. All right, so I think that when you go head to head as a hitter, as a pitcher, pitchers live for those moments, right? And I think you have to, as a coach, right, and as someone that's calling pitches, you have to trust them in their pitcher's best in the head to head. Pitchers train for that moment just like a hitter trains to live in that moment as well, or a base runner lives in the moment to steal, or for that play, that ground ball up the middle, someone throwing home. Like, we live for those moments. Let the pitcher live and die on that pitch. Okay, let them know their pitcher's best pitch so that they can thrive on it. Okay, and let them, let's be excited about seeing their best pitch against a hitter. Okay, in those tight situations, let's celebrate that, and let's just celebrate it. I mean, I want to see, I mean, if you're facing Monica Abbott, right, world record holder, fastest pitch by the Guinness Book of World Records, 77 miles an hour, do you want to face when the heat of the game and the heat of the moment, do you want Monica Abbott to throw you a changeup? Exactly. You don't. You want her to throw the rise ball at 77 miles an hour. So let her do that. Let her be the pitcher that she is and the things that she excels in, because Monica Abbott is standing on the mound. Your pitcher is standing on the mound thinking, I'm about to get them with my rise ball. Let's go head to head, mano y mano. Right? Those are the things that are super important to allow your pitcher to go out there and be a competitor in the toughest of moments. Okay. And then the last factor is the umpire's zone. I put this on here. I was a little hesitant to put it on there, but I did put it on here because it does It does play a part in our pitch calling, but it should never play a part in our overall plan or in our pitch strategy, okay? At the end of the day, a pitcher's job is to get the ball in and out of the zone quickly, right? And to control counts and use her defense. And allowing an umpire zone to dictate our calls puts us makes us passive, right? Makes you passive as a pitcher, makes you passive as a catcher, and makes you passive as a pitch calling coach or a pitching coach. We never want to have that mindset of being passive when when every pitch is against a hitter that's trying to be aggressive against you. Okay, you never want to have a passive mindset when your every pitch matters and every pitch a hitter is trying to hit off of you, right? And a hitter's having an aggressive mindset every pitch. So although we have to take it into consideration and know it, we don't want it to affect our mindset or our subconscious when we're out on the mound, so that we start to guide pitches or try to play into a zone. Okay, the things that got you there to the game that made you successful as a pitcher, those pitches are still going to work. Just use them in a different way strategically. Okay, does that mean maybe an umpire doesn't like high pitches, he's not calling any rise balls? Does that mean maybe I'm using my rise balls in a different way? Yes, like maybe I'm throwing a little bit more curveball to then finish with my rise balls instead of throwing 90% rise balls. That's what that means, okay? It's just challenging you to use your pitches in a different way and to be able to rely on things in different zones, okay? So just wanted to touch base on that. We'll bring Tara back on for any questions and go from there.
All right, Mon. So I just need you to allow me to bring my video back on. I don't know why it won't let me.
I think I can just make you the host again.
Yeah, go on. Okay, here we go. Fantastic. Oh my gosh, you should see all my notes.
Oh gosh. Uh-oh. hopefully you guys all have like loads of notes and got some good information. Obviously, pitch calling, in some ways it's very vague, right? But when you do it long enough as a pitcher and a catcher and a coach, you should be able to start reading the pitch, right? You can almost like first see what pitches start to like open up, what zones open up and where you can attack hitters.
Yes. So if anybody on here has any questions, go ahead and put them in the question and answer portion. I know that we received some questions earlier, which you covered, but I want to give a brief kind of synopsis. We went over pitcher's best pitch, timing, pressure pitches, tunneling, strategies, and in those strategies, triangles, the rules of three, and the rule of the change. So resetting timing, right? I love all of that, and I think there's so much that we can expand on. But I kind of want to just go there. This rule of triangles. So let's say there's a young pitcher on here, or a coach that is coaching a younger pitcher. What would be kind of a good strategy or sequence for that young pitcher? Let's say they've got a drop ball, they've got or a fastball and a changeup. Like what would you recommend for them to kind of start this triangle, the rule of the triangle?
Definitely. Let me bring my handy dandy board over here. Okay, you said, so first off, let's say she's still working on her pitches, right? And we'll put up here, this is the pitcher's view, by the way, not catcher's. And you said she has a fastball, a changeup, and what else? That's it?
Yeah, like a drop and a fastball and a changeup.
Yeah, okay, that sounds pretty standard these days for our young folks, our young up and comers. So when we think about like these kind of change-ups, just remember, basically think about it on like a 2-to-1 basis, okay? And then you can also, depending on how good she is, or I would say how accurate she is with like her fastball and her drop ball, she could even potentially tunnel a little bit, okay? And this is how you're going to do it. So you would start out, let's say, when I'm young, I'm going to tell you guys right now, fastball, Tara, you know what I'm going to say, outside corner, let's go. Okay. Like hitters, it's like the easiest place to get a strike. So let's just start there. Right? Am I right?
Yes, Monica was on the Selena Storm, and nobody ever wanted to face the Selena Storm back in the day because Mon was throwing balls outside fastballs at like 100 miles an hour. So yes, go ahead, Monica.
Yes. But it's not only for me, just, hitters at a lot of times, young hitters struggle with the outside. With that being said, though, if you are like in high school or have coaching kids that are in high school, I mean, pump that outside corner all the way, right? Like I know kids, I know athletes that went to big time D1 schools because they could hit the outside pitch to opposite field, like literally. So that's a game changer when you can see that in someone that makes it like their thing. Okay, so in a tunneling situation here, let's go first pitch fastball back to our young kid here. Then maybe she could do a drop ball inside. Okay, and then she comes back with her changeup outside. So again, you got to think two pitches here to the one across. Okay, and then of course she could do it the other way as well. This is where the tunneling aspect comes in. I'll show you guys right here. Depending again how accurate she is with her other pitches, she could go, heck, anything. She could go, let's say she goes drop ball first, and then she goes change up, and then she finishes with like a fastball. Okay, then there you have a smaller triangle on height there, okay? But that's would be the beginning stages of tunneling. But remember, when you're tunneling, you do have to have separation. So if her fastball is at the same height of her drop ball and the same height as her changeup, that's a line, right? Okay, that's not a triangle, guys. It's not a triangle, okay? There's a point at the top, okay? So the fastball has to be higher, or even potentially how good her drop ball is. Her drop ball could be that pitch as well. Okay. So it just depends on how good your kid is or your athlete is.
Yeah, and thanks, Mon, for that. We've got a question from Presley. So Presley is asking, what specific tools do you use to practice tunneling pitches? Hoops, strings. Also, I saw Janet at a camp in Knoxville for the first time. It looks like the perfect tool to practice the triangle. Maybe could implement it with tunneling tools.
Okay. I think the best way to practice tunneling is more in like the string aspect, okay? And then in locations with a catcher understanding lanes. So rings are good, but I find them a little bit limiting. Okay. So because remember I said in the earlier, I said you can tunnel in 2 different ways. You can tunnel on location or you can tunnel on breaking points. Okay. So that's really important to understand. And when you tunnel on location, remember you were tunneling. So here's our ball, right? We're only tunneling on half. Okay. And this is why I feel like rings are good to like help you to start to understand tunneling to see if you can do it. But once you jump levels, they can be a little bit limiting. So depending on your age or your skill level, you might want to move away from rings. But if you're 12U, 14U, even 16U, I would say, and potentially even 18U, for sure, rings can be good. And the reason, again, I said, remember, so now you're tunneling on a location, one ball's width on the outside half of the softball, okay? Does it make sense? So we're not, this is a no. Let me do it in red. We are not tunneling on this side, and that's where the ring can be a little bit limiting, okay? So if we start to tunnel, let's say our curveball, and it stays on this side, it breaks here, and I'm tunneling over here, that's not a good thing, right? Because we're hitting too much plate, okay? So I like the string, but I really like the ability to tunnel with your catcher, because at the end of the day, they're going to be your best view, right? And your catcher can space herself in lane 1, lane 2, or even like a lane 3, okay?
So Monica, can you explain those lanes, right, that you just drew on there and what those 3 lanes mean?
Yes. So lane 1, let me drawing here. So lane 1 is basically on the black, is what I put it on the black, okay? So the black of home plate, if you have a colored plate, it would be not quite, just outside of the green basically, but farther out, right? The green's still a lot of home plate, so, but that's a good reference if you use a colored plate. Okay, so the black is lane 1. Okay, lane 2 is what we commonly talk about a lot as the river, or like right inside the chalk, okay? Once we get past chalk, like if you want it, I prefer not to go out here unless you're like elite Olympic level. You don't need to go out here. Most of us don't need to go out that far. Okay, so you guys don't need to worry about that. So we're going to take lane 3 and we're going to cross it. Okay, we're going to cross it through lanes 1 and 2. Okay, and that's dependent on the catcher's movement, and that's where tunneling is super effective. Okay, we saw it a lot last year in the World Series, or I noticed it a lot last year in the World Series. But here, so you're going to start in the same kind of 1-2 area. So you could even start in lane 1, which is kind of nice because it tricks the hitter's eyes. And then you cross through to angle back. Okay, so you cross through lanes 1 and 2, which you just threw, to basically have a sharper angle or breaking point.
Great, that's so important. I think that there's so many things that we could break down, and you are a wealth of knowledge, Monica. Like I literally, you should see my notes. I have so many notes, but I want to know where people can find out more. So if they enjoyed this kind of pitch calling snippet, it's almost like very, basics to advanced. Where can they find more about you, and how can they get more information on anything and everything pitching?
Well, my biggest goal since retiring has been just to create more information and stuff out there for you guys. The biggest thing right now is just getting data out there. Of course, you go to my website, monicaabbott.com, and you can find out more about the pitching club, the virtual things coming up. The biggest thing I would say, if you're a pitcher or especially a catcher out there, every month this year, I'm putting on virtual classes, okay? And they're on different topics. So December was on speed development, January was actually on pitch calling, and then February is actually on mental game strategies, okay? So each month there's a different topic, and some of those have been requested by our audience, and you can feel free to drop them in the chat or wherever, or on social somewhere, email me what you want to hear. And those are available to you to join live, or you can also just buy the recording and listen to it as well. So just kind of continuing to just create knowledge and information for people. Of course, follow me on social, do events. I'm around softball all the time. So yeah, that's all I think that's everything. Did I miss something? Like,
Well, we are so lucky to have you on here. And again, just if you want to reach out to Monica, please go to her website. and make sure that if you have any questions, you can contact us or you can contact Monica if you want further clarification on anything that we went over. Please feel free to send us a message. And if you liked this webinar, please share it with your friends and let them know how much you learned today. But Monica, any final closing thoughts for our pitchers?
No, not at all, you guys. Hey, just remember the game's you throw a lot of pitches in the game, okay? But at the end of the day, every pitch matters, okay? So just take it one pitch at a time and just trust your practice. I believe in you.
Well, that's Monica Abbott for Softball America. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight on our webinar series. And we'll see you all next week with Riker Jason. He's going to go over some more pitching
Ooh, nice.
metrics and variability. So hopefully you guys will join us next week. Thanks so much.